Rudy Giuliani, he's President Trump's attorney. He's building a report to counter and question the legitimacy of Robert Mueller's Russia probe, also present any countervailing arguments about and any possible conflicts among federal investigators, including whether, quote, the initiation of the Mueller probe was legitimate or not. Let's bring in Harvard law professor, and he is the author of the blockbuster book, The Case Against Impeaching Trump. He's Alan Dershowitz. Great to see you, Alan.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We've never seen anything like this. What's your take on what's going on?
Well, I think it's exactly the right thing. We live in an adversarial system. The Mueller probe has only heard one side of the story. Remember, grand juries don't invite exculpatory witnesses to come in. They only hear one side of the story. And in an adversarial system, both sides of the story have to be heard. So I think it's a good thing for America. It's a good thing for justice. It's a good thing for truth, for the Trump team to be pairing their side of the story. And then the American public can judge by reading the Mueller report and reading the report by Trump. The problem with the Mueller report is it's illegal for Mueller to disclose grand jury testimony. And so he's going to have to write a report either without disclosing what he heard in the grand jury or his prosecutors heard in the grand jury, or he's going to have to get special permission from the court to disclose this material. And the reason we don't permit disclosure of grand jury material is because it's always one-sided. Lawyers are not allowed to be there except prosecutors. And so it would be unfair to rely on what went on in a grand jury as the whole truth.
Now, here's the thing. You know, the pushback's going to be, and you know it's coming, is that the White House is trying to undermine the institutions of the U.S. democracy. Your take on that?
Oh, exactly the opposite. The institutions of democracy require an adversarial system. You can't have democracy when you present just one side.
But you don't like the special counsel. You think the special counsel.
But even if
yeah, go ahead.
I don't approve of special counsels. I didn't approve of it when Clinton had a special prosecutor. I don't approve of it now. But even if I approved of it, even if this was an ordinary prosecutor, it's not undermining democracy to challenge the legitimacy or to challenge the coverage of how well it was done or to challenge the truth of what's in the report. That's the essence of democracy. It would be exactly the opposite of democracy if the people just believed what one side said. For example, you hear on television now, people are calling Trump an unindicted co-conspirator. Totally false. A, there's been no indictment that even mentions or refers to Trump. It was an information, not an indictment against Cohn. And second, what Cohn has said in his allocution is inadmissible in any court. It's hearsay. So, you know, we hear one side all the time from Mueller, and now it's time to hear the other side. Maybe Mueller will be more persuasive. Maybe Giuliani will be more persuasive. It's a clash of adversaries. That's the way the system should work.
Do you think the Mueller probe is illegitimate?
No, I don't think it's illegitimate. I'm not on the side of those who think it's unlawful. There are some very, very respectable scholars who believe that, and I think they make a plausible case. But on balance, I think it's lawful. I just think it's ill-advised. And I think that everything that's been investigated could have been done through the Southern District, through the Inspector General, through existing institutions. You don't need special counsel.
You know, Giuliani's report could be 100 pages plus. We'll take a wait and see on that. Let's get to this story. Republicans now criticizing President Trump's comments at a rally last night in Indiana, where the president openly called for the DOJ and the FBI to investigate his political rivals. Let's take a look.
But our Justice Department and our FBI have to start doing their job and doing it right and doing it now. Because people are angry. What's happening is a disgrace. And at some point, I wanted to stay out, but at some point, if it doesn't straighten out properly, I want them to do their job. I will get involved, and I'll get in there if I have to. You can have the biggest story about Hillary Clinton. I mean, look at what she's getting away with, but let's see if she gets away with it. Let's see.
Okay, Alan, Republicans are criticizing these comments, saying if Hillary or Obama made those same comments, they'd be blasted for it. Your take on that?
Well, I don't like the president seeking to criminalize the conduct of Hillary Clinton. You know, if Hillary Clinton had been elected president and they were trying to impeach her investigator, I'd have written the same book called The Case Against Impeaching Clinton. I think it's a mistake, tactically, legally, professionally, morally, to try to attack one's enemies by making crimes out of political differences. So I'm very much against efforts to try to criminalize the conduct of Hillary Clinton,
political
just as I'm against the efforts.
It's about the emails, right? So that's what the president, I think, is referring to, the Clinton Foundation.
Of course, and the people on the other side say it's about things that Trump may have done. Each side is trying to weaponize the criminal justice system to use against their political opponents.
That's the point,
I want disarmament. I want to see no criminalization except if the evidence is overwhelming that a clear crime occurred. Hillary Clinton was cleared by the Justice Department. Her clearing may have cost her the election, but she was cleared, and I would not reopen any investigations of Hillary Clinton.
Alan Dershowitz, we love having you on, and please buy Alan's book. He's a great writer. Good to see you, sir.
Joining me now is former federal prosecutor and author of License to Lie, Sidney Powell. Sidney, great to see you. Of course, your book is largely about the shortcuts that a lot of prosecutors take. Knowing prosecutors, as you do, particularly this one, Robert Mueller, what do you think he is more interested in, getting to the truth or just getting Donald Trump?
Well, ever since he hired Andrew Weissman and brought him on this task force, I've known that he has absolutely no interest in seeking the truth whatsoever. Mr. Weissman is the lead villain in License to Lie, which is nonfiction. It's all true, and it names names, including those of other high-ranking Obama administration people who show up in the page-stroke text messages and other places in this investigation. So no, he's not interested in getting the truth. He, I think, is part of the insurance policy that was concocted with McCabe, Stroke, Page, and others to destroy the president, which is why he's also featured on the T-shirt at my website, Creeps on a Mission.
So why should anyone, not just the president, but anyone, cooperate with somebody who's out to get their scalp?
Well, I understand why the president wants to, and I appreciate the fact he has been the most transparent president in long history, but I would not allow him to do that under any circumstances were I advising him. You just simply cannot trust that environment to produce anything other than an indictment for the slightest misstatement. I mean, look at Mr. Papadopoulos, who simply gave a wrong time frame for some of his conversations with people and wound up being indicted.
Well, meanwhile, the real collusion story, the story of the collusion between the FBI and the DOJ and possibly even the CIA over the Trump dossier and Christopher Steele, the author of that dossier, and Fusion GPS, funded by Hillary campaign. That collusion story continues to get fleshed out more, and some of it surprisingly came from Bruce Orr's testimony, even though a lot of people thought he would just clam up. But he, the husband of a woman who worked for Fusion GPS, was the one who was spreading the Trump dossier even before the FISA warrants were issued by the FBI. That is, the FBI knew about his relationship to Chris Steele. He was quite open about that before they issued the FISA warrants, something that they should have put in the FISA warrants, no?
Oh, yes. They left out a lot of information that should have been included. Well, in fact, since the entire thing was made up, there should never have been any FISA warrant applications to begin with. I think Nellie Orr, we will find, had a much greater role in this than we know now. It wouldn't surprise me to learn that she actually had as much role in writing the, quote, Steele dossier as Mr. Steele did, because she was working for Fusion GPS, who I believe we'll find, if we get the FISA court decision unredacted and unclassified, was one of the private contractors to whom Comey gave unfettered access to the raw NSA intelligence database in 2015.
Well, Sidney, let me just jump in if I can, because a lot of people have been pressuring the president to declassify everything as though it would be a snap of the fingers for the president to do that. However, there is a hangover, an executive order hangover from the previous administration that might make it so that it's not that easy for the president to declassify, no?
Well, there are a lot of considerations that go into declassifying something, the main thing being national security and the presence of any, quote, sources or methods, they call it, for the information that need to be protected. But it's not that hard to read these documents and tell what really needs to be kept secret versus which is a cover-up of information that the taxpayers and the public are entitled to know. So
But
President
is
Trump could undo that executive order.
Are President Trump's hands now tied by an executive order that prevents declassification by President Trump?
No, he can undo that executive order. Anything Obama did by executive order, President Trump can undo by executive order. He just needs to be mindful of the considerations that warranted the executive order in the first place.
Speaking of President Obama, it's a little off track from your book and your particular expertise, but I'm wondering, his outrageous, I would call it, attack, certainly unprecedented attack on President Trump. Most presidents in my lifetime have had the decency to be quiet about the successor, even if they totally disagreed with what their successor was doing. This president is obviously breaking with tradition. What do you think about that?
I was absolutely appalled. It is a 200-plus year tradition of silence for the past president to allow the new administration to do what the voters wanted it to do without that intrusive interference. He paid lip service to that in his speech and then proceeded to absolutely destroy it. He just walked all over and spit on that tradition. It's nothing short of outrageous and appalling.
Do you think there will be blowback from this?
I hope there's blowback. I mean, as best I can tell, the Democrats have the donkey as their logo for a reason, and most of them are acting like the southbound end of the northbound donkey.
I can't approve on that. That's got to be the end of this conversation. Sidney, great to see you. Thank you very much for being here. Sidney Powell, we appreciate it.